Welcome to Beyond the Business Card podcast.
And I remember then being called into a meeting from HR. It says, Susanna, there's been a complaint. And I was like, what? And I was mortified. I thought, I'm going to have to stop being a manager. I really haven't got this right.
Today, we sit down with Susanna Gray-Jones, a sales leader and entrepreneur who knows what it takes to stand out and succeed. From learning to thrive with dyslexia and dyspraxia as a child to talking away into Cambridge University, Susanna has always pushed boundaries. Her sharp sales instincts, fearless attitude, and ability to influence have helped her become a top recruiter, a leader, and an entrepreneur. But success hasn't come without challenges. In this episode, Susanna shares how mindset and self-awareness have been real keys to her journey, proving that business success isn't just about credentials, but about confidence, grit, and the ability to adapt. Let's dive in. This is Beyond the Business Card podcast with Susanna Gray-Jones. Susanna, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be on the guest chair today.
That's right, because we already had we did a podcast episode for your series, and it's great to sit here and now return the favour and have you in the hot seat.
And punish me for all the difficult questions.
I actually really enjoyed that. It was great. It was great you had a real good ability to open up. And actually, I talked about a lot of things there, which I haven't actually spoken about in podcasts before. Yeah.
I love that. And I think your mum actually said it was one of her favourite ones.
Correct.
Which is the best kind of compliment you can get. So,
that's very true. And my aunt, by the way. So they're if those two approve,
nice.
My cap.
They're the main critics. I love that.
So look, in this podcast, it's obviously beyond the business card, right? So what we try and do is we explore life behind what the entrepreneur does and get to understand the nitty gritty behind the journey. Okay? So I think a lot of people see the success, but they don't understand how someone got there. They don't really like to they don't understand the pain, what the resilience required, and just, the actual journey that people have been on. And from doing this and speaking to a lot of people now, everyone's very different. But there's one thing I will tell you is that resilience seems to sort of shine through with everyone.
Yeah. I agree. And I've seen that as well. I think sometimes we go on social media, we go on LinkedIn and we see people and we think it's easy for them. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it looks easy when you're looking on the outside, but often people are quite shy to share what actually goes on behind closed doors. Yeah.
And I've done quite a few just in the past year. I decided that I would start branching out from the recruitment business, start doing training, coaching, and sort of growth consulting. So I spent a lot of time with people who I've actually been following on YouTube and Instagram for a long time.
Yeah.
And I've been sat in the room. Actually, I reached out to some of them. I had them as mentors, but also attended some business masterminds, etc., with them.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm telling you this is because it's quite fascinating when you get to sit down with these guys and girls in real life, right? Because number one, I think you sort of get them in a sort of mini celebrity status. You kind of, you really sort of, you think about their life and you hold them in high esteem.
You do.
Which is great. And I still do hold many of them in high esteem, but it's brilliant listening to the journey that they've been on to get there. And I don't think people share enough of that. And
they don't.
It's just YouTube is always full of like the Lamborghinis, the Mercedes, the big flash houses on the Palm, etc., that you see endlessly, but they don't, none of the grits. And what we want to do in this podcast, we want the grits.
I love that. You don't get to see the bank balance. You just see the cars. You just see everything else. So
yeah. So if you don't mind, we'll crack on with your story.
Okay.
So tell us a bit about your origin story. Where are you from?
Okay. So, as we discovered just before this podcast, I do actually have a slight Welsh accent that comes up sometimes, especially if around Welsh people. But I was born, my parents moved around ever since I was really young. So like 3 months in, we moved to Gloucester, then to Wales. My dad's always wanted to change. So we've always been a family who've moved around to lots of different places. So I grew up as headmaster's daughter, would you believe it?
Wow.
Typical posh girl with the head teacher as the daughter. But things weren't quite as expected because I had dad who went to Cambridge and I think everyone thought I was going to be the super smart kid. However, when I was sort of about 8 or 9, the teachers, I always remember hearing the teachers talking about me and saying, "There's something not quite right with Susanna." Whether it was the writing or just, I don't know what, maybe just a bit odd, but they got me assessed and I had quite severe dyspraxia and dyslexia, which sounds quite straightforward, but often included quite a lot of embarrassing things. So, for example, tripping up. I was always tripping up. I could never tie my shoelaces up. Little things that kids are supposed to be able to do, I just found a bit difficult. And at that stage, there wasn't much kind of awareness about any kind of special educational needs. So it was kind of, you have to deal with it. So why does Susanna say that weird thing? Or why does Susanna do that? You play up to it. You become the clown. So I kind of reframed it to being a bit seeking attention quite early on. So I don't know, for example, even in class, I always remember that time when I had to read aloud and she peered over the bush. Dyslexic Susanna, she peed over the bush. And then like everyone starts laughing and you're like, you either go bright red or you just play up to it. So I would always play up to it. And I think in a weird way, that was kind of the first moment that I thought, crap, I need to stand out somehow here. Otherwise I'm going to get laughed at or bullied.
And that deflected everything, the bullies away, did it?
Yeah, it did to a point. I think it made me very self-conscious early on, and the need to be liked and admired, because there was always something, like if it wasn't the school tray, you know that kid when they like drop their lunch everywhere and everyone stops and looks. That kid was me. And there's always that kind of moment of, okay, you laugh or you do something silly. So I just did something silly, and yeah, that was always my kind of early way of getting around things.
I've always been quite fascinated by teachers' children and how much pressure they must like. Do you feel under quite a bit of pressure, particularly the headmistress's daughter or headmaster's daughter? Do you feel under a lot of pressure?
Yeah, we have to say head teacher now, don't we?
Sorry.
No, it's just funny. Yeah, there was loads of pressure.
Yeah.
Like loads of pressure. It's like, yeah, you always feel like, especially in a fee-paying school, where it's like, did you hear the head? Like, I remember being in trouble. Like, we used to go on this cool, like, Childline and pretend, oh, it's awful. I shouldn't really say it on a podcast. But we used to do things, and they would never send me to my dad. They would send me to the deputy. And there was always that look of, what have you done? You are the headmaster's daughter. You shouldn't be doing this. So, yeah.
So Childline, for those that aren't familiar with the UK, that's the number that you call up to basically if the child's in danger, right? Oh, my God.
Well, we wanted to see it's awful, isn't it? We wanted to see what actually happened, and it was very naughty. Don't do that. Yeah. not to be copied, but yeah, we used to break a few rules.
Gotcha.
And I think there was a part of it that thought I could, because my dad was the head teacher.
Right.
You want to kind of test the boundaries, but yeah. So.
And you said you travelled around a lot. Was that around the UK?
Yeah, around the UK.
Yeah.
We went abroad a bit, but yeah. And I think during those very, very early years, my sister was always very super clever. We were very sort of like a very high achieving family. So I used to do a lot of singing and stuff like that. Went to school with Charlotte Church, little claim to fame. So
you're a good singer now. Maybe you can do another song for us.
I sing. Not on the podcast today, I'm afraid. But yeah, it's there were lots of kind of very sort of key moments of quite a lot of pressure earlier on, which I suppose does lead into business, because you've always got that pressure. So always showing up and being the best version of yourself, but being competitive at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But you left school, but you went to Cambridge University. So you went. So you were pretty smart for all accounts.
Well, you know what? I always joke about this because I think I kind of got in a bit through the back door. Like, I remember. I was getting 22%. I always remember, like at school when you look at all the grades and they put the bottom person at the bottom, I was always that kid at the bottom, and it was like, it's a horrible feeling. And when they discovered I had dyslexia and dyspraxia, and I really don't talk about it very much. I guess it's probably still part of me that's a little bit embarrassed about it. But I got such amazing support. Like, I had this incredible teacher who really helped me, gave me confidence, and made me realize this is how you learn. Like mind maps, for example, those little bubbles, spider maps, whatever you call them. They were like, okay, now that makes sense in my brain. I can learn that differently. And, I wasn't a grade student, but my grades went straight up. went to an interview at Cambridge. Now there's this college that had just joined Cambridge University that you could be a bit less A grade to get into. And my sister was going, and I just thought, I'll give it a try. Let's see what happens. And I remember sitting in the interview, and the guy said to me, right, tell me about Stravinsky, because I was going for music. I didn't know anything about Stravinsky. I was like, this is awkward. But I looked up and I saw he had books on his bookshelf with Stravinsky. And I just said to him, do you know what? Like, I can see all your books. I'm not going to answer about Stravinsky. I'm going to ask me about Handel. I can ask about Handel. And it was so risky, but it worked. And he laughed and he said, okay, tell me about Handel then. And I feel like that was kind of the early stages of trying to hustle.
Well, you controlled the room as well. You persuaded him. So that's...
I've always been a hustler, I think.
There's your sales skills coming through straight away, you know? Yeah. You controlled the room and you persuaded him to ask you another question.
And I think everyone's got that in them, you know? I think a lot of it is just testing how far you can go. Like in Cardiff, I was always the tall kid. So going to get a drink served behind the bar, you know, I could be 14 and do that. And everyone would be like, whoa, that's brave. They didn't ID you. You know, just little stuff. I like seeing how far you can test that limit.
Yeah.
And I think all salespeople have that element of kind of, let's see what happens and what's the worst that can happen.
Well, you're also in pretty good company with the dyslexia, you know, having a supposed disadvantage. There's the most famous one being Richard Branson, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of a lot of successful entrepreneurs that have learning difficulties. By the way, this isn't a caveat to me now telling her I've got learning difficulties, but I actually do. So I was numerically dyslexic, still am to this day, terrible with numbers. Absolutely.
Really? How do you manage that in the business?
Well, we got calculators now, thank God.
But still.
Well, I was always the bottom of the bottom set in math. I was good at other subjects. Well, I wasn't a top A grade. I was very good at sport and I was good at English, but numbers, disaster, right?
Really?
And my parents, they were pretty cool about it, which I actually very grateful for them. I remember coming home with my maths exam results, and my dad could not stop laughing. And I came second from bottom, and he couldn't stop laughing. I remember this one. He said, I cannot believe there's someone worse than you. And
like cheers.
It was, and everyone found that hilarious. And then we went out and celebrated me not coming bottom. So
that's so good, you know.
Cool,
and I actually don't. I'm sorry if anyone who's listening does this, but I actually don't agree with rewarding kids financially for how well they do. Like A grade, you get, I don't know, £2,000, whatever. I actually think it's better to reward people for how well they do against what they can do.
Yeah.
Opposed to being the best.
Yeah.
So, and I love that your dad had that sense of humor.
Yeah. It was, he once helped me out. And I remember this as well. I couldn't do my maths homework. So he dropped me off at school and he said, look, I'll do it in the car. And I went and did my morning assembly, and he said he'd leave the book in the bushes. He did that. And I thought he was a whiz at maths. Handed my book in, I came bottom still. So I knew where I got it from.
There was no help. There was no help for you. I love that.
There we go. So went to Cambridge. How did that all go?
Oh, I thought we were going to get to talk about you then. Back on the interview thing. Damn. So yeah, I mean, I did not get all A's, right? And you can get into Cambridge without all A's. I don't know if you can anymore.
Yeah. But
I do feel like I kind of wangled and talked my way into it. I always remember being in the toilet singing I Have Confidence, just like trying to I will sing it, and I'm a massive believer in if you are not feeling confident in anything, to talk yourself into it. And I think I kind of
singing, but singing actually helps as well. That's
does.
True, yeah.
You go anywhere, spas, they've got healing baths and all that. I'm not going to hippie mode now, but I'm a massive believer in singing and endorphins. There's loads of research to show that it does help, and it's always helped me. And I think everyone should sing. There should be more singers out there.
Well, it helps break down barriers, right?
Yeah. And it's the breath. It's the breath. To sing, you need to breathe deeply. And everyone, when they're stressed, they breathe from a very shallow place. So it kind of teaches you to breathe and release stress. So, yeah.
Nice. So you went around Cambridge singing everywhere?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And yeah, it was great. I mean, it was such a pressure environment. If you speak to anyone who's been to Oxford or Cambridge, it's so many people lose it. You know, they really do. I saw a lot of people really struggle mentally there because it's very competitive, shorter terms. You have to stay up all night to do your essays and stuff like that. And everyone's doing everything. But also it was an amazing experience. You know, I got to be on stage and do some amazing things, see people who are pretty well known now
Really?
doing some great things. So
Did you feel the pressure there?
Yeah, definitely.
How did you
I
deal with that?
remember being a Cardiff Welsh girl with the big earrings and like big fluffy jackets, and people were sort of like, "Who's this girl? Like, what's she doing here?" Then they met my dad. They're like, "Oh, okay, she's actually from a posh family. She's not actually a chav, even though I am a bit of a chav." But yeah, so yeah, it's a great environment. I feel very blessed that I was able to go there. But did it shape what I'm doing now in business? No, I think ultimately, to be successful after university is all down to mindset, right? Mindset makes or breaks you, essentially.
Yeah. So it didn't really serve you in much purpose going into the working world, is what you're saying?
I don't think on paper it did. People might be impressed, if they've got those kind of values, but I don't know that I would necessarily persuade my children to go to university.
Really?
I think more things are valuable, like coaching and discovering more about yourself. I'm a massive advocate for things like therapy and psychology and meditation and all of that. Like, I think mindset is it'll make or break you.
Yeah.
And I think not enough people focus their time on sorting their mind.
Yeah, there's a lot of people now that talk about Simon Squibbs probably being the more famous one now, talking about how the current education system isn't fit for purpose, how it was set up for the industrial era, to get people working in factories, essentially.
Yeah.
And we're still following that system today. I mean, I'm an advocate for not going to university because I didn't go. Well, I did for a couple of months, but you can't really judge me for that.
What happened?
I just didn't, to be honest with you, I just knew within, but there was obviously the wise owl in me then said, you know what, you could spend 3 years getting drunk and doing, probably having a lot of fun, but digging yourself a lot of debt, or you can go and work. And I just felt I had an itch that I wanted to scratch.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel right. I felt like I was lying to myself.
Really?
Being in university. So I felt I felt drawn to leave, and I did. And also I wasn't motivated to attend any of the lectures. I wasn't interested. I was in a school, I went to a school where they really wanted, for their own numbers' sake. I mean, your dad will be able to tell us this, but they had to get a certain amount of grades. They had to have a certain percentage of the students had to go to university, so they could sell more places in the future, right?
Yeah.
So, and I never really wanted to go, and I went because everyone else was going, and then I realized
social conformity. Yeah.
Yeah, I realized that I wasn't up for it. So, yeah, I completely agree with you there. I felt that I always could tell I had good sales. I was always good at negotiating. I was always good at getting my own way. My aunt used to always say to me that you are a very charming young man, and right, as it was evident as I got older that I could manipulate situations, which you can block as a salesperson.
Influence, not manipulate.
Yeah, well, you know what it is. There's an argument to say one of the same. Yeah, so you were obviously aware of your own skill because you entered the working world straight into a sales job, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think influencing people is one of the greatest skills that you can have. And I think, ultimately a lot of people can do it, but they don't realize they can do it. And I think I was lucky. It was just something I could do. And there were so many things I couldn't do, like work experience. I remember going to a hotel and cleaning toilets.
Yeah.
And I was like, great, people would give me money for this. This is quite easy because
cleaning toilets. Wow.
Yeah,
that's got to be the worst job I've heard on this
podcast.
podcast.
I'm getting paid. But you go. I really struggled in school. I really tried really hard, and no matter how hard I tried, and I really wanted to, I just could not get those A's. And I didn't think I realized how hard I tried until I got out into the real world, and I realized how no one else was trying. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me I have to make 50 calls in this sales job in a day and I'll get paid and that's good. And and I didn't understand why are people not picking up the phone. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And I think a lot of people have it in them. They just don't realize. So, yeah.
So what did you do? What was tell us about your...
So my first job was a telesales role. It was typical call center. Yeah. And all you had to do is pick up the phone and call. You had a script, those old school scripts. I don't know what you think of those sales scripts.
I think they have a time and a place, actually. But I think I think for newbies, actually having a script or something to follow. You don't necessarily follow it word for word, but having something to follow to get you into the swing of things, I think it's actually quite good. And I know this from recently, actually going back to selling going back to selling my coaching program, right? And
Yeah.
it's a very different type of selling to recruitment. So I've actually had a sales plan, a sales script
Nice.
that I put together. But I don't really, I've kind of follow the outline a bit now. I don't really follow it word for word. But to me, it was important to remember what I want to say, to write it down and to practice it.
Yeah. See, I think they're brilliant. Like, I think it's great to have a guide, because otherwise people get slumped and they don't know what to say. I'm a massive advocate for like old school discipline. Maybe it's just me getting old, but I love the whole, like, this is what I need to do to get to there. And then you follow it. I think a lot of businesses now are going down that route of KPIs. We hate KPIs, bash KPIs. But actually, they're done well, and they're done specifically for individual people. They're great. And I learned very hard sort of early on, where you had to make sort of 100 calls a day, and I saw the success. I fought against it. I said, I'm not doing this in my head. And then I was like, do you know what? Screw it, I'd do it. And then, like, I was one of the top performers in the call center every day. They had the call log, and I was always the one on the phone the most, and it paid off. And I just thought, well, this is quite easy. I'm not really having to work that hard in my head. And then everywhere I went after that, so I went to recruitment, education recruitment. A lot of people go into recruitment thinking it's not sales. I was from a sales background, picking up the phone, people are like, what? And it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
You're interrupting people's day. I think a lot of people see it as you're trying to sell them something they don't want, but actually you're interrupting their day. They will be annoyed, but you can try and turn that around. That's where your influencing skills come in. And that's where a lot of people struggle, because they just think they're being a nag. But that's where you turn it around.
But you're obviously very competitive though, because I think if you go join a call center environment, did you identify someone in there that was doing well that you wanted to compete against, or did you?
Yeah, all the time, right? So I think competitiveness can make or break you as well. So I think I go back to this story, and it sounds like I'm name dropping, but for me, such a big impact was being one of the best singers in my school. Suddenly, a new child comes in, which is Charlotte Church, who we all know now as a renowned, hugely one of the most rich people in Wales. And she's,
I don't really know much
absolutely.
About her.
She Sony deal, everything, all over America, very famous.
Oh, okay, wow.
And I was at
all
school.
For singing.
Yeah, she was a child star, absolutely incredible. She came into our school, and suddenly I was like, I'm not the best singer anymore. Someone else is. And I remember my grandparents were like, wow, you've got a famous friend, sending me like all her posters and stuff. And as a child who was 11, who's singing as your main thing, you're kind of like, oh. And we all get it. Like, I'm sure you get it in business. I'm sure you go onto LinkedIn and you see, I bet you've got a big competitor and you think, oh, what are they doing? You've got a choice, right? Either you look at them and you think, oh, why aren't I like that? That's not fair. And I think early on, I remember thinking, I'm just going to praise her. And I remember getting a poster up of her and putting it on my wall. And my sister or my mum were like, what are you doing? You're like, this is your thing, singing. I said, no, like envy and jealousy are two different things. And I try to remember that today, because when we look at the noise of our competitors on LinkedIn, we often see, the bad stuff.
You want them to
makes some people feel really shit. And I just think, actually, and I message my competitors now. I say, hey, I loved what you did. And then suddenly you work together, you build, but it's very hard to do that.
Yeah.
And it took me that. I always think back to that example. And even now I message her on Facebook, in speaking terms, and it's nice.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I create enemies in my head.
Do you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And how does that make you feel? Like you see one of your enemies.
Yeah, I get where you're going with this. And does it put me in a great place? I'm not, like, I don't know if it.
Do you block them? Do you unfollow them?
Sometimes.
Do you?
Yeah,
why?
Sometimes. I block them when I'm
done
with them.
Right?
I block them when I'm done with them. No, when I feel like I've moved, I'm like, okay, I'm on to the next. And there's some people out there that won't really know that I've got my eye on them, that I'm coming for them. And I create a war in my head sometimes as well. But that's
really?
It works for me. It's what I've always done, right?
Do you feel it spurs you on and motivates
you? Absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. I use it as fuel, right?
Okay.
And I know a colleague of mine does actually as well.
Really?
I was having a chat with him today about this, and it really eggs me on and gets me going. So I can have someone as a target in my mind that I want to go for, that I want to beat.
Yeah,
and then on to the next, and then I dispense of that, and that's I've always worked that way. But
I guess it's the stories you tell yourself in your head. It's like
all in my head.
Look at them. I can be better than them.
Yeah.
That spurs you on. Or if it makes you think, oh, do you know what? Like maybe It's how you translate it, frame it, isn't it? That's so funny. I'm going to see if I can figure out who your enemies are.
Yeah. Oh, they're always like people that they're normally people that are doing, reality is they're people that are doing better than you, right? You've got to, you think, right, I want a piece of that. I want a piece of that pie. I think it's the fitness, the fitness guy, James Smith, right?
Okay.
Have you, he basically went for the body coach, you know who I'm talking about, the body coach, James, what's his name? Wicks.
Oh, but I know exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The body coach. The guy who's blown up. Right?
He's got the books and stuff. Yeah.
Nicest guy ever.
Yeah.
It was was doing all the workouts for the British people during COVID. He made him his enemy.
Really?
Yeah. And basically started I think he even dropped him an email and sort of went for him, tried to go for his audience. And that was all in his head and it worked.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Joe Wicks.
Yeah,
that's
right.
What I'm talking about.
I've got his book. I know.
Yeah.
But,
we've got a cookbook of his as well.
So that could be a good tip, couldn't it?
Well, some people use it like that.
See if it works.
I've actually, when I've listened to podcasts of people doing it, it only seems to be many men I've talked to who behave in that way.
Yeah.
It might not just be men.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to try it. But
Were you very sporty at school?
Yeah, so I was captain of the girls' cricket team.
There you go.
So that's wow. Not many girls play cricket. Not enough girls play cricket. Cricket is an awesome sport, especially if you're quite a patient person, because it can be quite slow moving. I love a good 2020, but I won't watch, the long test matches.
There's going to be a lot of people on here like, what the hell is 2020? It's a cricket game, a very short cricket game. So, but okay, that's because there's always that correlation, as you know, particularly sales and sports and competition. So you clearly were made for sales.
Yeah, and I think performing as well. Some of the best business professionals that I've seen are performers. They are always on stage. But I've always been a massive believer, and it's the cheesy thing, isn't it, that we really are lucky to be alive. There's 1 in a trillion chance of something. And I think so many people come into this world and they very underplay. They sort of go into small box and hide and I don't want to do that, play it safe. And everyone wants to play it safe, but ultimately just put yourself out there.
Do you think about that a lot?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
How lucky you are to be here. Really?
Yeah, all the time. Probably too much, because I'm really into psychotherapy, and everyone has a big fear, right? For me, it's that one day we are going to die. And I really struggle with that, because I do. I assumed everyone did until recently. I think I was speaking to my husband and he goes, hey, it's a bit dark to think about this. But I also think that it's good to think about it, because otherwise you do waste your time. And we have, no one cares, right? We spend so much time worrying about what people think of us, but let's face it, when you're gone, no one really minds. So you might as well just go out there and be the best version of yourself. And I really try.
In the early days, did you feel like that? Were you quite self-conscious?
I think even now I'm self-conscious, right? We all get self-conscious. And certain people bring that out in us more than others. Like you were saying about the competitors and the people that you see. But I think ultimately, one of the hardest things I've ever learned, I always remember, was when I was a manager. And you've seen The Office, the American Office?
Yeah, I've seen all of them.
I really want to be popular. I feel like when you first become a manager, you're being watched, and you really care about being seen to be all important and good and all those things. And sometimes the power can go to your head. It went to my head. I was 24 and it was I was watching The Office and I thought, do you know what, I'm going to play pranks tomorrow. I'm going to be that cool boss. And I remember sellotaping someone's phone to their headset and doing stuff. And I remember those things were funny. Yeah. It's not good, is it? But I was 24 or 5. And then I think I went on someone's email and did a joke. And it was just all happened in the space of a morning, where I'd been watching too much of The Office over the weekend. And I remember then being called into a meeting from HR. It says, Susanna, there's been a complaint. And I was like, what? And I was mortified. I thought, I'm going to have to stop being a manager. I really haven't got this right. And then I had to apologize one by one to all of my team members. But do you know what? After doing that, they loved me, because I was so humble in that meeting. And I just said, it was not on. It was unprofessional. It was a really stupid thing to do. And I really hope that you will forgive me and trust me moving forwards. And no bosses do that, right? Well, not many. I don't know, like apologizing to your team is such a hard thing to do. So having done that, the respect kind of came, and nothing like that ever happened again. Left the company and got some amazing comments.
Yeah.
But I had to make a hell of a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And defining myself as a professional boss was really difficult. So, yeah.
Interesting. So you sounds like you worked your way up the career ladder quite quickly then.
Yeah.
So at 24, 25, you were managing a team. How big?
Gosh, about 7 or 8.
Wow.
So a sales team,
Yeah.
quite modest. But I think I've always had, I don't know how personal we can go on this podcast.
Very.
I've always had a few defining moments, and they've often come from heartbreak. So I remember the first time was when I was 16. I got very hurt because I went to girls' school, guys showed attention, and like I was in love. I was going to get married in my head. And then he just ditched me. And I remember crying myself to sleep every night. My sister is probably the most influential person I know. I think when we think of influential people, we think of successful, but she's always struggled with her mental health. I think sometimes the people are always struggling and battling are the people who are actually the most inspirational. And she is one of those people. And she said, right, I'm going to give you a list, 10 things you love about yourself. Read it, look in the mirror and say it every day. And I did. And I felt like an idiot for like the first week. But then after a while, it was like, okay, this works. So that kind of was a very big confidence thing. But then I had another breakup, which essentially led me to go to a city where I knew no one, in Bristol.
So you left Cardiff?
Yeah, left London to go to Bristol. I had to get out.
Oh, so you did Cardiff, London, now Bristol.
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
And my boss was like, there's a managerial role. You've never been a manager before. Why don't you just take on this office? And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. Didn't know anyone. Left boyfriend and all friends behind, and just... You
left your boyfriend behind?
Yeah, we broke up.
Oh, okay.
Another broken heart, and then just started this new adventure as a manager, and it was great. We were the most fast-growing office in the UK that they had at the time. We were just machines, and it was the best. And that in my life, I've always weirdly seen bad things come from breakups. Great things come from bad things like breakups, and that got me into management. But also having an appetite to learn. I don't know what you're like, but I hope you're not one of those managers who always says, I don't need to read any books. I know you're not one of those managers, but there are so many people out there who are business owners. They don't think they need to read anymore. They're like, they know it all. But I think everyone should always keep learning and reading. And I still read about management, even though I'm not actually currently managing anyone. I think that was my kind of go-to, the books.
Yeah. I think when I first got into management, I hadn't got a clue what I was doing. I just replicated the last manager I had. Okay, that's the only thing I knew. I became a mini that person.
Yeah.
And then you start over. I read some books, but I think I was mostly influenced by the people that I'd worked for.
Interesting.
And actually, I'd probably say, even for each job I had, I tried to be like the boss that I had or I previously had. Even when I set up the business, I was a fusion of them all. I can look back at things I did. Yeah, absolutely. To a degree, I can still see some of the things that I do now. Are still, I can pluck them from my first boss, who's a good friend now.
Yeah,
I know that I've learned them then. So I was very influenced by people.
Yes,
and I think I've never been a huge reader until audiobooks arrived.
Yes, yeah.
I just wasn't, but now I read a bit more. But also, I'm a bit battle hardened and older, right? So you also, I think in the early days I was I think a lot of. And I think this is from the generation I'm on. And you can tell me if you agree with this. I think you were sort of encouraged not to be yourself in work.
Yes.
You were encouraged to kind of, leave home at the door. You're going to work now. And literally, as you walk through that office, it's like you are a different person. Have your game face on.
Yeah.
And that, I was brought up in that environment. And I very much, it took me a while to kind of, to get, to be comfortable with being me. I think probably about 5-6 years of being a boss. I don't know about yourself. Did you feel that when you went into work, you were showing who you were? It
was a bit harder because when I went back to London, I was actually managing a lot of people who used to be my colleagues. And that was really difficult because it's like, they need to respect me. And in your head, what you think you should be is often not what they need. It's to listen and to understand and to make people feel special. It's like, I'm a massive advocate. I don't know if you ever read Jeff Ram. He did a book called Celebrity Service.
Right.
For an example, my my kid was crying the other day in a queue, and the shop assistant did the most amazing thing. She got my receipt. He wanted to have one of these toys, and she just made him a magic ticket. When you go to bed tonight, you will dream and you will go on this magic train. Like 5 minutes, she created this amazing story. He was really excited. He left just with this paper receipt, which had a ticket on. Just little stuff like that, like celebrity service, going the extra mile. Like, I know that you would roll out the red carpet today if, I don't know, let's say Cameron Diaz walked into the office. It's like trying to think of, like, if this person was a celebrity, how would I treat them? And that's how I try to treat people, everyone, as if they are getting the best of me.
Nice.
As far as my maid, as far as people, anyone who works for me, I think they need to have that appreciation of being important and special. And I think sometimes it's so easy to forget that.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of it, unfortunately, so around the Middle East as well.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. So I'm intrigued. You're clearly doing very well in this Bristol office. You're a young high flyer. Well, how long did you stay there for?
I then met my current husband very quickly.
Yeah.
So
was he working there?
No, he was. You want to know a story? He was in a bar, right?
Okay.
And I heard him talking with his very posh accent. My friend was like, "Stop staring. I'm going to write your number on a piece of paper." Gave it to him, and the rest was history.
That was that. You passed your number over.
Yeah, that was like 13 years ago.
Wow. No messing.
Yeah, no messing. Hustle everywhere I go. hustle. And then we moved to London because his career meant he had to move back to London. We always joke that every 2 years is a move, but then and then obviously the big move was to the Middle East.
But so what did you do with the company that you were working for in Bristol, and clearly doing very well?
Came back to London to manage their London office.
You stayed with the same company?
Stayed with the same company for 13 years in the end.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still very good friends. And I learned so much. I think working for a small business was one of the best things I ever did as it grew.
Did he try and keep you?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one. So I had children, and I think everyone knew I wanted to start my own business. And I'd always talked about it. He did try to keep me, but I also knew that there were so many people who wanted my job. And I knew that having kids, I would be a hands-on mum. So I knew that to be corporate versus having kids, I already had one child when I left. And I think they probably knew that I was going to struggle, because we're talking like 7 a.m. starts. You work till the evening. Is very little movement. You don't see that many parents working in education recruitment. So I think it was kind of expected.
Okay.
But he always says he's going to invest in me if I ever come back to the UK. So who knows? But it was very hard leaving. It was probably one of the hardest decisions I ever made, actually, especially in COVID, and especially starting your own business in COVID. Yeah. Not many people would do that in their right mind. Yeah. So it was very, very gutsy thing to do. Now,
I mean, there's an argument to say it's the best time to do it as well, right? Because not many people would be thinking of doing it. So you'd have, a time to sort of put your head above the pulpit, whilst others are, they're not even contemplating it and just want that steady, secure job. The other thing I'm intrigued. Like, I think I've got my business owner cap on here. So you've worked in this business for a long time.
Yes.
Education recruitment business.
Rec to rec. Yeah.
And you are the highest performer.
I am the go-to person. Sounds very big-headed in education rec to rec.
Yeah.
So it's nice because whenever I work with someone, they've normally heard of me or know. Or most of my business is now, and I hate people who say this because I still hustle and I still think you have to keep hustling, but I do get so many referrals now, which is brilliant. I think last year I paid out about £6,000 just in referral fees, it's a lot when you think of you're not trying to get them, they just come to you, which is really nice.
So, but for this particular job, you were already the go-to working for this guy, right?
So no, I was working as an education recruiter. Now I work as an education rec to rec. So I already had the network. Yeah.
But what I mean is, while you were working, you were one of the highest performers in the business, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
As a sales director.
Yeah. For a long time.
Yeah.
For a number of years.
Yeah.
Why didn't that person try and keep you? Why didn't they give you skin in the game?
He did. I don't know how much you want me to say on here.
I want to know everything. I want to know
someone
why
came to take my job.
Someone would let you go. Yeah.
Well, I think they knew. I've been talking about doing the rec to rec for years. And I think they knew that was what I was going to do. And also it was I would have been the only one on the executive management team who had children.
You've mentioned this now, like
Yeah.
3-4. So you felt having kids was going to make you unemployable. I mean, you've obviously had this. You obviously were caught up with this because you mentioned it just in a short space of time, several times. So do you not think the SME was able to sustain that?
It's difficult, isn't it? I think we'd seen so many parents struggle. And I think they knew the type of mum that I was. And I'm pretty hands-on as a parent. And I think they just knew that I was going to always pick the parenting over the kids. And I'm lucky now that I have got a lifestyle business that earns me more than I ever dreamed of earning.
Yeah.
And I can pick up the kids.
Yeah.
And I can drop them off.
Yeah.
And I can take a month off if I need to, which is a really nice situation to be in. And nothing was going to stand in my way.
But there was never a discussion from the employer side that there would be any flexibility like that.
There was, yeah,
right.
There was.
Okay, interesting. So, but you didn't think that would still be good enough, no? So you had an itch you wanted to scratch.
And it was my time, right?
Yeah.
Someone wanted my job. They were gunning for my job.
Yeah.
They had all the time in the world. Let them take it. And that was really hard. There wasn't much further to go. I didn't want to be MD.
Fine.
I think MD is the most stressful job.
You didn't want to be MD of their business.
No.
But you wanted to have your own business.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. And so the next question I've got then is, why not just do what you did before? Why did you decide to become, a rec to rec, which if people don't know recruitment, that means Susanna decided to find recruiters to do the job that she previously used to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you decided to change kind of industry.
Yeah.
And you've become a mum.
Yeah.
All at the same time.
Yeah.
Why?
I knew that anyone who has a business knows that the staff is the most important thing. I would be on holiday in my old role trying to find staff. Facebook, anywhere, desperate to find staff. I knew how important it was. I also knew I became quite good at it because my teams were high performing because I had got the best people in. And I knew that if I could do this, I could do a lot more in less time for companies and have a lot more flexibility and make my own money, essentially. So I paid myself for a year. I was like, this cannot fail. At least it was going for a year. People would think she's done okay. She doesn't quit after 2 months.
Right.
So I just hustled every day. I remember thinking, you had no sleep. Is anyone out there working harder than me? Is anyone doing more than me right now? And if it was yes, and I just work harder. It was like the biggest year of my life. My husband probably didn't even see me. I was just like downstairs, just cold calling all the time. We'd be watching films. And I'd be like, I just need to make a cold call. He'd be like, what the hell? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But that first year was the hardest, and it was great. I had competitors saying, you're everywhere. What are you doing? And I see the competitor look at my profile. I was like, this is great. Like, I really made a lot of noise in that first year, and everything just took off from there. So, yeah. You
made it sound incredibly easy.
No, it was not easy. I had 2 babies. I wasn't living in Dubai. I didn't have the support that I have now. But I did have a very supportive partner. I think a lot of couples, especially, you've been with a career driven, it can be really difficult. And he's also very driven. But ultimately, he knew that first year was going to be everything for us. And he took a very prominent part in the parenting. So, yeah.
So I'm intrigued, right? Because my wife and I, we've obviously got 3 kids. Mm-hmm. We're both entrepreneurs, but let's be straight. We've had help because we've lived in Dubai and Singapore, right? Yeah. So we've had the luxury of having home help. You're in London.
We were back in Wales.
You're back in Wales,
yeah.
Right? Yeah. You got 2 small kids.
Yeah.
You've decided to go on your own.
Yeah.
How old were the children at the time?
Well, we just had one. So Sebastian was born during COVID, so he would have been about 5-6 months old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not easy.
Not easy. We did have some family nearby, which was great.
Yeah.
So that was helpful, but
not sleeping much.
Not sleeping much. No.
And you decided to launch your own business.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
I don't know. I look back now and I think absolutely crazy, but I do think support. I actually don't know.
Was your husband working?
Yes, full time. Yeah.
So were you? I mean, how?
Well, we had COVID. Yeah. I actually remember asking my boss, if I could take extra furlough. I don't know if I'm allowed to say
Yeah.
that. And instead of resigning. So I did. So I think I took about 2 months extra furlough. So that was good. But I had the financial backup, I had the financial backup I'd been wanting to do this for years. So I knew that.
You saved a lot.
Yeah, I saved a lot of money. I'm very I store money away, and I really believe in being very careful with money. So I think that probably helped. So yeah, but
that's interesting.
I remember having a lot of Pro Plus, a lot of coffees.
Yeah.
A lot of, probably a lot of stress for my poor husband, but
okay.
Yeah.
And you knocked it out the park year one.
What was that? Sorry?
Did you knock it out the park?
Yes. I think my first year I did about 100, it probably doesn't sound very much to some people, but I think I did about £150,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's profit.
Yeah.
Which to me back then was amazing.
Yeah, fantastic.
And obviously I've doubled that since. So it's, and it could be a lot more. And that's a battle that I always have with myself. It's that being a mum, and I think a lot of mums have this, how can I be a really good mum and be the best I can be in business?
Yeah.
It's a very, very big battle that's often on my mind.
Yeah.
It's like trying to balance the two.
And the thing I respect with you and am quite intrigued by is that you've not decided to go down the route of hiring lots of people, but you've kept it. You've built your own brand. So you've got your podcast, right?
Yeah.
You're pretty active on social channels.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've more or less wrapped the market that you work in up and become like the go. So you've grown your revenues and you've worked how you can fit that all in, but not by not hiring people.
No, but thank goodness for AI, right? I have some phenomenal AI tools that make things a lot easier for me, that mean that I can get away some days of doing 4 hours a day.
Wow.
And hopping on. I think the thing about recruitment, anyone who's in recruitment will know this, is you work when you need to. If a hot candidate falls on your lap, you will speak to them whatever you are doing. So I think there's that element of being adaptive and being flexible that has helped to make me successful. But also the AI tools, there are so many, that can help you navigate LinkedIn in a really streamlined, effective way, which are great for dyslexic people who don't like spreadsheets and stuff like that. So yeah, it's, I think the main thing that has really helped me is I'm always learning. Call me up with a demo for something, I'll try it. Let's see what happens. And
you're now going to get absolutely bombarded, by the way, as we were saying.
Do you know what? You said something to me actually, because we are quite into crypto in our family. Yeah. I remember thinking, Justin, I impressed him with what we're doing with crypto.
Yeah.
And you said, I actually invest in myself.
Yeah.
That's what I see as being the best kind of investment. And it got me thinking actually, and I did start investing in myself a lot more, and it does pay off.
Yeah.
It does. It's how you take that book or that course and how you then implement it. That's what makes someone successful.
I've got a few questions around your 4-hour day.
Okay.
Share your secrets with everyone. What are these AI tools that you are? You're basically sat there and you've got bots doing all the work for you.
So when I started my business and I thought it would fail, I became a sales coach for a company called Sales Gravy.
Yeah.
I read a book, a really good book by a guy called Jeb Blount called Fanatical Prospecting. It's one of the biggest sales books out there.
Yeah.
Wrote to him, emailed him. I was a bit obsessed with his book. I was just reading it all the time. It was a bit cringe. And he said, come to Atlanta. I want to meet you. Come and do some coaching for us. So for about a year, I did some sales coaching for them and I loved it. It was great. And I learned so much. And one of the things that really was game changing for me was sequencing. Right? I used to do sales calls, hit or miss, yes, no, or maybe. I didn't really keep them in a pipeline. Whereas now I'm really good at sequencing. I've found tools like Source Whale to be amazing for that. Dripify. Yeah. I must say Dripify for me has been the best.
So LinkedIn
for navigating
automation.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Automation. Voice notes.
Okay.
I know you laughed at me before because I always talk about voice notes, but if you do a compelling message that's compelling enough to whoever it is, you will get their attention. And I've done quite a lot of work on that to sort of trial and error to kind of see what works and what doesn't work.
So do you manually voice note people, or you've recorded your voice?
That's the only manual bit that I do.
Okay.
So I think there's a lot of automation out there that's obvious. So now if you're authentic and they get a voice note that says, I really liked what what you did when you were back at school, you were part of this group or something, they were like, what? No one looks at that. And suddenly you get their attention. Even if they're not interested, you get a yes, no, or maybe. And in business, that's all you're really trying to do, right? Get a yes, no, or maybe. And yeah, if you can get that quickly, then you can shift people through the pipe. Which is essentially what I do. But there's so many good tools like that. I love ChatGPT.
Okay.
I've got a therapist in ChatGPT. If I've got something that's bothering me, I'll be like, is this normal that it's bothering me? And it says, this is what you do now, Susanna. Like literally ChatGPT is my assistant.
Really?
Yeah. And you can be so creative. You probably know.
Yeah.
You can be so creative. And you don't have to get it to write things for you. You write your own things. It just spell checks it for you.
Yeah.
It makes it even better. So, yeah.
And do you plan on keeping your business as a solopreneur venture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be one of those old people who, I think I will keep it on the side as a solo venture. I think I have to start managing people again at some point, and I have to start leading again, just because it brought me so much pleasure. Right now, the kids are my priority, but I think as they get a bit older, I will definitely go into some recruitment firm and grow it in a big way.
So you'd like to go back into a corporate?
Yeah, whilst having my rec direct on the side. So yeah, and that rec direct will look after whatever corporate that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you and where do you envisage going? Is a business with skin in the game and helping them scale?
I think legal recruitment's a really good place to be, space to be at the moment. I've got a lot of friends in legal, so I think the networks are great. You can really do some great things, and they're really interesting people, lawyers. I mean, some of them work like 12 hours a day, and they are just incredible. Some of the cases they work on, some of the things they do, it's just, it's a very interesting type of
So
work.
would you see this as being, this is quite interesting. This is, I did not know this. You're planning on doing this. It's super interesting. So you would have your existing business running. Who would run that though? Surely you'd need someone's like,
I don't know, one of your VCs and part of your
someone in Manila or something like that.
Yeah. One of your BAs even.
Yeah, but the business is you though.
Yes. But I also have a formula that I believe works really well that someone could replicate.
Okay. So as a solopreneur, I think a lot of people would be fascinated how you could get your business running on the side with your name and face on it, but not have to be the person involved in it.
I think it's really interesting as well, though, with LinkedIn. Like so many people talk about how many followers you've got and they talk about that, but I've been really intentional. I actually go through LinkedIn every day and remove connections if they're not part of the audience. So I've been really intentional to make sure that the people who are looking at my posts are the people who I need to be looking at my posts. And I look at impressions. I don't look at likes. So for example, I will put up something that I'm working on that is really crucial. I might only have 4 or 5 likes and I'll have like about 10 messages about the particular role. So I'm learning a lot about how to navigate LinkedIn, and it's not all about the noise. It's about being in front of the right people.
Yeah, that's very true. I've met people with millions followers and they don't make any money. So, it's
exactly.
that I completely agree with. But you surely, you will need to spend some time in that. I mean, what systems and process will you put in place to have a business that runs without you when everyone is used to dealing with you?
I think there's some great stuff that you talk about and you've spoken about before is you can automate videos and things like that. So you can still be very present without actually being there. And I think if you know and you've got the right kind of clients, and you can still make it essentially run itself. So it's about long-term relationships, which I luckily have quite a lot of. So
is that business, it's 5 years old now?
Yeah, almost 5 years old. Yeah.
So it's got quite predictable revenues to it. You kind of, you know what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, I've got a worst case scenario and a best case scenario. I never understand why businesses have like, this is my target and it's something really high, because then if you miss it, you're like, crap. But if you've got a worst case scenario and you're always above that, then you've always got something to aim towards. And most of the time I'm on the best case scenario.
Right.
But not always.
Are you too conservative?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And, if you are always on the best case, you're a bit risk averse. As we spoke about earlier.
And that's quite unusual actually for someone in business.
Yeah.
But I've also
It's not actually Adam, my business partner, the tightest man I know,
he?
and he's incredibly risk averse. Yeah.
And does he overperform?
Yeah. But we crank up, like, so whenever we go through business planning, he's always glass half empty and I'm always glass half full.
Really? Okay.
Always.
Great combination.
Always,
Great combination.
And that's, I think he's always very thrifty and thinks of the costs, and
that's probably good. Like I am.
It works as a duo. It works well.
Yeah. I don't know about him, but I'm very motivated by knowing that my business might crack and close.
Yeah.
I love it. When someone drops out, something bad happens in business, it's almost like I'm a psychopath. I'm like, brilliant. Now I can work really hard tomorrow because that's my fuel to really make it happen.
Wow.
Which is, again, probably quite uncomfortable way to live.
That's very interesting. Okay.
But yeah, it's...
So you moved to Dubai, right?
Yes.
So we haven't got, we were in London before, and you're going through this mad startup situation, which I can't believe you kind of put yourself through. You must have had a hell of a support network there, right?
Yeah. Well, we were actually in the southwest in Wales when we made the move to Dubai, and it was one of those times that I was feeling really tired, feeling really burnt out. I thought maybe I'm working too hard.
I'm not surprised.
I had these awful headaches. Went to doctor. Turned out I had a cyst right in my stomach, and it was treated like an emergency case. Like I was in hospital at one point, like a few days, and I was scared. Like, I think when you have kids, you think, well, what if? Like, you think, what if I'm not here and I've got these two little people that I'm their life, right? They're everything. And the worst case scenario went through my head, and being probably a bit intense, I was like, okay, now what am I going to do? Bucket list. I've got 2 years left, literally thinking the worst case scenario. And I decided, my husband was always saying move to Dubai, and I'd be like, whatever, as if I don't want to be one of those people. I've got my family here. Anyway, I actually realized life is short and we want to have an adventure. And thankfully, cyst removed, everything fine, not cancerous, lucky. And we did it. We just literally, we told everyone we're doing it. And in 4 months, we went and moved 2 kids under 4 across the world, which is, again, crazy. And that was really scary and very uncomfortable. I don't know if you remember, but I was messaging you all these random messages when I first arrived. You were the only person that I'd been recommended to who knew recruitment. And it was terrifying. And I wanted to move back. As soon as I got here, I was looking at flights to go back. What have I done? Yeah. And now I love it. Yeah. So,
That's, again, it's just a real ballsy move. You think about it, you had all that support network there. You've just been through a quite traumatic situation.
2 C-sections.
Right. And then to go, then for your next reaction to be, you know what, I'm just going to pull the ripcord and we're going to leave it now, and we're going to go somewhere completely different away from
credit,
everyone.
To be fair, to my husband, who is probably the most instinctive, adventurous person ever. Like, extremely adventurous character. And like you say, I was very conservative. I think sometimes you sort of need someone to sort of give you a push. And I did, and I've got a great mentor who was going to do it as well. Yeah. And he persuaded me. So yeah, it was huge.
And from a business perspective, you didn't. I know this because you've really kept your business in the UK. But you run it from Dubai.
Exactly.
Right?
I did plan on working a bit more out here, but I think when you're working across 2 different time zones, you struggle to have that kind of freedom. And I've kept it very niche. I'm a massive believer in niche businesses, being that one person, that go-to person, and then just expanding on that is, it's a great way to grow. Okay.
But I'll offer up some advice here. One of the things that I've found where I've failed in times, though, is when I tried to do take too much on.
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
And you've clearly got a really lovely business that brings you, a good income, and gives. Is your husband working here now?
Yeah. Yes, he's been working. He got a job straight away. Yeah. I was pretty on it, helping him find a role.
He's got a good team partner there. I mean,
literally, I think his recruiter probably knows me better than he knows him. But yeah, it's he's been lucky to do that, and we've got other plans like investing in property here, and stuff like that.
So you've got you've moved here and you made it a lovely life of it, right?
Yeah,
good.
I think there's a lot to be said, isn't there, about sunshine, but also being around ambitious people. Yeah, like we were talking about the work from home thing, weren't we, before? And I think just being around people in a workspace or around people who are very ambitious, you've got that in Dubai. Everyone's interesting. Everyone's got a story.
There's a lot of entrepreneurs. There's a lot. If you think you're doing well, I was talking to a guy, and he's a like hundreds of millions, his net worth. He lives on the Palm. And he
Nice.
goes, and I said to him, "Oh, do you feel settled?" He went, "Of course not." He said, "I go for a run every morning, and there's a guy with a helicopter landing on his yacht next to me." That's Dubai.
Wow.
That's Dubai,
And
right?
that can shake a lot of people,
Yeah.
especially if you're quite ambitious and quite proud and you see someone always
Or if you're
doing better than
driven
you.
financially, let's be frank, not everyone is.
How do you cope with that? I want to know. How do you cope with that? Because you're very successful. You're seeing people all the time who may be more successful than you. I can imagine that would burn you more than it.
Yeah, it does. It does. But I've also learned to control and learned to use it as fuel, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the times when I attend business courses or masterclasses, I forget I'm probably going to be the oldest guy in the room.
Yeah.
And that normally is the case, right? Which it really is quite.
Is it really the case?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I don't think about it that much. Then I arrive there because you kind of think you look quite young.
Yeah, I still think I'm 21.
There you go, right? And I still to a degree, I'll probably act a bit like that. Anyway, my point is that the dynamic change is because a lot of people come to me. I've noticed this now. People come to me and ask if I'm like, maybe they think I'm like a mini Gandalf in this. So I get a lot of questions, which I kind of like. So
yes.
I have a role to play in these situations. But what I was going to say is, everyone's younger than me, and quite often when I go to these events, they've made quite a bit more money than me. But I find that's fuel to the fire. And I've got a reality check now that I think Helen and I have got a very nice life. We haven't got anything.
I love looking at your guys' life. I do.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, it's really nice to see, and I think it's nice to see two ambitious people like you working so well together, being great role models for your kids.
But I've also, and this actually is one of the guys who are coming up on the podcast taught me this. I've also learned that financial freedom is just part of what drives me. Actually, the two big things are time and location, right?
Yes.
I love the freedom to be where I want, when I want. And I've really learned to treasure that as I've got older. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because the more money that you make, the more you want and the more you think you'll need. You can speak to any financial advisor and then you can be, well, actually, that would be quite nice in my old age. And that would be quite nice. And I think, you're completely right. Like time and being away from your phone. We all love being on our phones, but when you actually remove the phone, you're like, you see so much more of the world.
It's just the one thing we can't buy back, right, Susanna? I can't, like, your kids will only ever be this stage and this and behave the way they are on this day, and you can't rewind that. Like, if I miss an event, chances are there'll be another one, right?
Yeah.
If I miss a holiday, well, you know what, I can fly there again.
Yeah.
But I'm not, I think this comes from losing a parent at a young age, right?
Really?
Because you're very influenced by that. You can't, you hold on to those memories, and that therefore always makes you think there's a finite time.
Interesting.
So I've really become aware of that. And I think in business, it's also the thing that people don't value the most.
They don't.
Their own time. They don't cost themselves out. They don't understand that them putting loads of effort into doing administrative tasks or whatever, it's just a waste of money. It's a waste of their time.
And it can become obsessive. It can draw you in. And the amount of people who say, Susanna, why are you not scaling? Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? And it's like, you almost feel like you need to show off to people and do it and make more and say, look what money I'm earning now.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, no, because like you said, I won't be able to buy back that time.
Yeah.
And it's super cool.
So that's actually, I got asked this morning by a guy, a successful entrepreneur in the gym. He came up to me and he very kindly said, "You've got a few years on me."
You're really feeling the old thing now, aren't you, Justin?
No.
It's,
I quite like it. I quite like
Do
it.
you?
Yeah. And also, I feel pretty fit and healthy for my age, so I'm not hung up on that.
That's
or
important.
anything.
Yeah.
So, he said to me, you've got a few years to me. Like, what advice would you give me? And I actually said exactly what I've just said to you. I said, focus on, financial freedom obviously gives you the freedom to go where you want, when you want. Like that is get that locked in ASAP. But the things that people undervalue the most is the ability to be where they want, when they want, and actually, and their own time, where they spend it and who they spend it with.
So true. When people talk about that lost parent or someone in their family who they loved, they don't think, well, they had this much money. They think about, what's Maya Angelou said, people don't remember what you said. They remember how they make you feel, and that's
and you
what
give it all up
marks you
to
leave on the world.
spend more time with that person, right?
100%.
So that
profound.
tells you everything. That tells you everything. So intrigued. So you've got your business is going very well. This next chapter, which you've given us a sneak preview into. Tell me about how you see this in your head.
So I think we're talking about 4 or 5 years in advance, because right now it's a great situation to be in. So temporarily, we'll probably invest in some property. Do that up. It's my husband's passion.
In Dubai?
Yes, in Dubai. Tick that box. And then whether we stay here or not, my parents who are listening probably to this will probably hope that I'm going to say we're coming back to UK. But I'm lucky enough to have quite a lot of successful friends who are in business, including my old boss and including lots of people who believe in me enough to either get the investment or invest in myself, hopefully invest in myself and create a team and go into the recruitment world and go back into being that leader that I loved being.
Okay.
Right. And it's so many mistakes to become a decent leader I made that I really feel that I owe it to myself to get back into that position again.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
And do you see that as a business owner or as an employee?
I see it as a business owner and an employee.
Okay.
With the view to training someone up, as I feel like I did a bit in my old company to take on my place.
So have a partner go into business. Very interesting.
Exactly. So I'm not finished yet. This is a great kind of interlude. I'm lucky to have a lifestyle business.
Yeah.
I want to make my mark in the world in a bigger way. And it's bubbling up.
Okay. And do you see yourself retiring, or do you see yourself having a business that kind of just funds your life?
So I'd love to ask you the same question. So I don't want to retire. I can never see myself being on a beach doing nothing. I always want to be doing something.
Yeah.
Power of Now, great book. I believe that we find our purpose in being busy. And I love it when a day's gone really quickly and you feel like you've achieved something.
Yeah.
I can do nothing now and I don't want to. So I'll probably be one of those really annoying business owners who's supposed to have stepped away, who keeps putting their nose into everything. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm you asked, so I'll tell you, I don't see myself retiring either.
Do you?
No.
Are you one of those annoying business owners?
Yeah, probably. Well, I don't know if I'll always do what I'm doing now. I mean, I'm let's see where the journey takes, right?
Yeah.
But the goal is that I just want. I don't want to be in like a recruiter for the rest of my life. That I don't know. That I know. But I love having a recruitment business. So
yes,
do you see what I mean?
Yes,
so I don't want to. I don't want to be on the hands-on elements. There's elements that I'm quite happy like running.
You've done the more
processes.
Transactional stuff.
No, I love business ownership, and I'd love to continue in that. I think the experience that I've accrued in the talent industry, I love sharing that value.
Yeah,
and also I really enjoy the industry. I think it's full of super fascinating entrepreneurs. Most people I meet are hugely ambitious, really lovely, and I enjoy their company.
Yeah,
right? And I think the sector it's enormous. It's just worth billions, and it's enormous.
Yes.
And it's ripe. It's ripe for innovation, and you tend to find that the people in the industry are open to innovation as well.
Definitely.
So I want to stay in that ecosystem, but have businesses that fund my life within it. Okay.
Yeah. And what I notice about you as well as a leader is that you are a dad, but you also get quite a lot of satisfaction from growing people through your company and seeing them grow, which, I loved that as well. I think it's a great privilege to be able to watch people make a better life for themselves.
Is that what you miss?
I do. I do. It's exactly what I was
really
thinking.
Interesting.
It's a great privilege to see someone go from maybe a small salary to then be able to buy a property and to do that and to think I helped them do that.
Yeah.
It's what life's all about, isn't it?
Yeah. I was
leaving your mark.
I was thinking about the type of vehicle that I would like. And actually, my old boss has got something quite similar in the sense that he's got a group of companies in which within that are people that have worked for him that now run those businesses that are part of the group. And I really like that as a model. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah,
and I think if you train people right, and let's say Hussam here for an example. Hussam is filming us today. as Hussam grows his business,
Mhm.
it could be there's something that rather than me being his customer,
Mhm.
we could work together, and I could, I could leverage my network to introduce him to lots more people,
Yeah.
vis-a-vis yourself, right? And help him grow his ecosystem. And that I find really interesting. I get quite fascinated by other parts of the business that can
Yes.
do that.
Yeah.
And so where I see our business going, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this, is we have a recruitment company, but we'll have different parts of the agencies and parts of our business that will help
Yes.
recruitment business along the journey,
Yeah.
be it in marketing, be it in offshore, be it in consulting and growth.
Well, that's still the recruiter in you, right? It's like saying, well, look, I've got this person who could
Yeah.
help with this. I mean, you've
Yeah.
done it for me. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had some amazing coaching session with your wife.
Yeah.
And like you've introduced me to lots of other people as well. And I think that's clearly something that you distill the recruiter in you, but
Yeah.
in a different sense.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a way that you could still do it.
But the recommendation I would give yourself, and it's one that I always have to have a word with myself in as well, is don't put your name to too many things at the same time.
Interesting.
Because that's the one thing that can really screw you. Is
Really?
You've got to have all your, like, don't leave one thing, your main money maker, until you've got that button down and you know that that's locked in and that's going to be fine, and your income is going to be secure there, and you've got a system that works. Because the minute you step out of that, disruption occurs if you've not got it sorted.
Yeah. It's really good advice. Very wise. Thank you. Didn't know I was getting a coaching session as well as being interviewed. I love it.
So you in terms, we'll wrap up soon, but I'm quite intrigued by, you said Dubai might not be your home for much. You are thinking about going back to the UK at some point, are you?
It's difficult, isn't it? There's certain things that I miss, like the rain. Who says that?
Yeah.
Like I went back and it was like, this is actually quite nice. I miss seasons.
Yeah.
I miss older people. You don't have many older people in Dubai, although Justin now considers you for yourself as old. There are things that I miss. There are people I miss. I think ultimately
family.
It's absolutely.
Yeah.
But I also think having kids who can grow up in a classroom where there are like 11 different cultures. You have a child who's from Ukraine playing with a child from Russia, and then there's an Italian child. It's just all, it's such a great kind of formula and mush of people. And I think diversity and putting people together creates such wonderful things, and you see it. So I think it would be very difficult to leave here.
Yeah.
Very difficult. And I think it's a great inclusive place. People often say, and I'm getting political now, people often say to me back in the UK, well, we don't think it's very ethical. It's not ethical because you've got people working for less than minimum wage, what we would have here. My answer to them is, well, actually, a lot of those people you wouldn't even let into the UK.
Yeah.
Right. They're getting better opportunities in Dubai than they would have in their own countries. And I think that's an amazing thing. And you see people providing for their families because Dubai exists.
Yeah.
And it's great to be part of that. So I would love to stay here for as long as they'll have me. So yeah.
Well, they seem to be arms wide open for, if you come here and want to enjoy living here and bring your family here, I think that's why we all love settling here. It used to be when I first came here 17 years ago, everyone said they're coming for 2 years.
Wow.
Everyone did.
And they did, didn't they? Like people used to move more then. I've heard that people stay here more now.
Yeah, well, that's true. Most of that cohort that said that actually ended up staying a lot longer. Yeah,
Nice.
I'm one of them. I'm a product of that, right? And it's now, it's just a lovely place to be in. With the visa system they've got, you can. Does your husband feel the same?
Absolutely. And I guess with your kids, they probably see Dubai as their home now, right? That is their home.
It's a weird one with children, right? Because mine are born here.
Yeah.
And were born in Dubai and Singapore. And I never really thought about, I never really thought about the fact they might, when people say, where are you from, that they might have to think twice about this.
Yeah, good point.
Now they're older, they say England quite fiercely. Yes.
Interesting.
But for a while they were confused. And this was actually happened at a water park I took them to. And it was just, the three of them were lined up to go down a water sledge. And the guy who was blowing the whistle so they can go, going, "Hi kids, where are you from?" And I think he's used to tourists saying,
yes, of course.
"Oh, Belgium, Russia, UK, whatever." And they all three of them looked at me. And I said, they were born in Dubai and Singapore, but they're from the UK.
How long have you got? Yeah.
And the guy was like, okay, yeah, long story. Blew the whistle and down they went.
He was like, okay, you can go.
Yeah. Wasn't that interested.
So
But it really made me think about it. Susanna, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I feel very honoured to be part of it.
Well, it's been a lovely chat, and congratulations on all the success.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sure you're going to go on to continue to do amazing things as a solopreneur, and then as a partner of a huge legal recruitment business. Let's see.
Can't wait. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I hope you like this episode. Please hit the subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you soon.